The Atlantic is an American magazine, founded in 1857 as The Atlantic Monthly in Boston, Massachusetts. Since 2006, the magazine is based in Washington, D.C., created as a literary and cultural commentary magazine. It has grown to achieve a national reputation as a high-quality review organ with a moderate worldview. The magazine has notably recognized and published new writers and poets, as well as encouraged major careers. It has published leading writers' commentary on abolition, education, and other major issues in contemporary political affairs. The periodical has won more national magazine awards than any other monthly magazine. After experiencing financial hardship and a series of ownership changes, the magazine was reformatted as a general editorial magazine, focusing on foreign affairs, politics, and the economy, cultural trends. It is now primarily aimed at a target audience of serious national readers and thought leaders. The first issue of the magazine was published on November 1, 1857. The magazine's initiator and founder was Francis H. Underwood, an assistant to the publisher, who received less recognition than his partners because he was neither a humbug nor a Harvard man. The other founding sponsors were prominent writers, including Ralph Waldo Emerson, Oliver Wendell Holmes, Sr., Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Harriet Beecher Stowe, John Greenleaf Whittier, and James Russell Lowell, who served as its first editor. In 2010, The Atlantic posted its first profit in a decade. In profiling the publication at the time, the New York Times noted the accomplishment was the result of a cultural transfusion, a dose of counterintuition, and a lot of digital advertising revenue. Format, publication frequency, and name. The magazine, subscribed to by over 400,000 readers, now publishes 10 times a year. As the former name suggests, it was a monthly magazine for 144 years until 2001, when it published 11 issues. It published 10 issues yearly from 2003 on, dropped monthly from the cover starting with the January-February 2004 issue, and officially changed the name in 2007. The Atlantic features articles in the fields of the arts, the economy, foreign affairs, political science, and technology. Regular contributors include James Fallows and Jeffrey Goldberg. In April 2005, The Atlantic's editors decided to cease publishing fiction in regular issues in favor of a newsstand-only annual fiction issue edited by longtime staffer C. Michael Curtis. They have since reinstituted the practice. On January 22, 2008, The Atlantic.com dropped its subscriber wall and allowed users to freely browse its site, including all past archives. In addition to The Atlantic.com, The Atlantic's web properties have expanded to include The Atlantiquire.com, a news and opinion tracking site launched in 2009, and in 2011, The Atlantic Cities.com, a standalone website devoted to global cities and trends. According to a Mashable profile in December 2011, traffic to the three web properties recently surpassed 11 million uniques per month, up a staggering 2,500% since The Atlantic brought down its paywall in early 2008. The Atlantic.com covers politics, business, entertainment, technology, health, international affairs, and more. In December 2011, a new health channel launched on The Atlantic.com, incorporating coverage of food, as well as topics related to the mind, body, sex, family, and public health. The Atlantic.com has also expanded to visual storytelling with the addition of the In Focus photoblog, curated by Alan Taylor, and the video channel, Literary history. A leading literary magazine, The Atlantic has published many significant works and authors. It was the first to publish pieces by the abolitionists Julia Ward Howe and William Parker's slave narrative, The Freedman's Story. It also published Charles W. Eliot's The New Education, a call for practical reform that led to his appointment to presidency of Harvard University in 1869. Works by Charles Chestnut before he collected them in The Conjure Woman, and poetry and short stories, helping launch many national literary careers. For example, Emily Dickinson, after reading an article in The Atlantic by Thomas Wentworth Higginson, asked him to become her mentor. In 2005, the magazine won a National Magazine Award for fiction. The magazine also published many of the works of Mark Twain, including one that was lost until 2001. Editors have recognized major cultural changes and movements. For example, the magazine published in Martin Luther King Jr.'s defense of civil disobedience in Letter from Birmingham Jail in August 1963. The magazine has also published speculative articles that inspired the development of new technologies. The classic example is Vannevar Bush's essay As We May Think, which inspired Douglas Engelbart and later Ted Nelson to develop the modern workstation and hypertext technology. In addition to its fiction and poetry, the magazine publishes writing on society and politics. A three-part series by William Lang of Eacher in 2002 on the rebuilding of the World Trade Center generated headlines, as have articles by James Fallows on planning for the Iraq War and Reconstruction. As of 2016, its writers included Mark Bowden, Ta-Nehisi Coates, James Fallows, Jeffrey Goldberg, Robert D. Kaplan, Megan McArdle, James Hamblin, and Jeffrey Tyler. Ownership. For all but recent decades, The Atlantic was known as a distinctively New England literary magazine. It achieved a national reputation and was important to the careers of many American writers and poets. By its third year, it was published by the famous Boston publishing house Stickney and Fields. The magazine was purchased in 1908 by its then editor, Ellery Sedgwick, but remained in Boston. In 1980, the magazine was acquired by Mortimer Zuckerman, property magnate and founder of Boston Properties, who became its chairman. On September 27, 1999, Zuckerman transferred ownership of the magazine to David G. Bradley, owner of the Beltway news-focused National Journal Group. Bradley had promised that the magazine would stay in Boston for the foreseeable future, as it did for the next 5.5 years. In April 2005, however, the publishers announced that the editorial offices would be moved from its longtime home at 77 North Washington Street in Boston to join the company's advertising and circulation divisions in Washington, D.C. Later in August, Bradley told the New York Observer, cost-cutting from the move would amount to a minor $200,000, $300,000, and those savings would be swallowed by severance-related spending. The reason was to create a hub in Washington where the top minds from all of Bradley's publications could collaborate under the Atlantic Media Company umbrella. Few of the Boston staff agreed to relocate, and Bradley embarked on an open search for a new editorial staff. In 2006, Bradley hired James Bennett as editor-in-chief, who had been the Jerusalem bureau chief for the New York Times. He also hired writers including Jeffrey Goldberg and Andrew Sullivan. J. Lauf joined the organization as publisher and vice president in 2008. The Wire is a sister site of The Atlantic.com that aggregates news and opinions from online, print, radio, and television outlets. When The Atlantic Wire first launched in 2009, it curated op-eds from across the media spectrum and summarized significant positions in each debate, expanded to encompass latest news and original reporting. Regular features include What I Read, showcasing the media diets of individuals from the worlds of entertainment, journalism, and politics, and Trimming the Times, a summary of the feature editor's choices of the best content in the New York Times. The Atlantic Wire rebranded itself as The Wire in November 2013. CityLab is the latest expansion of The Atlantic's digital properties, launched in September 2011. The standalone site has been described as exploring and explaining the most innovative ideas and pressing issues facing today's global cities and neighborhoods, featuring the work of Richard Florida, urban theorist, professor, and Atlantic senior editor. The Atlantic Cities.com also has been described as showcasing leading voices in the urban planning and community building arenas. The Atlantic Cities was rebranded as CityLab on May 16, 2014. In June 2015, it hosted the U.S. launch of The Universe Within, the final installment in the high-rise web documentary project. Critical reception. In June 2006, the Chicago Tribune named The Atlantic one of the top 10 English-language magazines, describing it as the gracefully aging, 150-year-old granddaddy of periodicals because it keeps us smart and in the know with cover stories on the then-forthcoming fight over Roe v. Wade. It also lauded regular features such as word fugitives and primary sources as cultural barometers. On January 14, 2013, The Atlantic's website published sponsor content about David Miscavige, the leader of the Church of Scientology. While the magazine had previously published advertising-looking-like articles, this one was met with wide criticism. The page comments were moderated by the marketing team, not by editorial staff. Comments critical of the church were being removed, while comments praising the church were being downvoted by readers. Later that day, The Atlantic removed the piece from its website and issued an apology. List of editors: James Russell Lowell 1857–61, James Thomas Fields 1861–71, William Dean Howells 1871–81, Thomas Bailey Aldrich 1881–90, Horace Elisha Scudder 1890–98, Walter Hines Page 1898–99, Bliss Perry 1899–1909, Ellery Sedgwick 1909–38, Edward A. Weeks 1938–66, Robert Manning 1966–80, William Whitworth 1980–99, Michael Kelly 1999–2003, Cullen Murphy 2003–06, James Bennett 2006–2016, Scott Stossel 2016–present. List of issues: The Atlantic Monthly, Volume 113. Contributor Carl Sandburg Collections. Atlantic Monthly Company, 1914. Retrieved April 1, 2013.